eyes, these ears, the feet. This is where the validation of the spiritual reality happens. Verse 7, little children, this is chapter 3, verse 7. Little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous. There's no is without a do. If you say I am and I don't do, you lie. That's what verse 7 and so many other verses, maybe 15 of them, in this letter say. The deceivers were saying you can be righteous and not practice righteousness because the body is neither here nor there. It's really in the way anyway. And what counts is the be inside and not the do outside. And John said the only people who are righteous are those who practice righteous. So confirm your being by your doing. That's what he says over and over again in this letter. Look at chapter 2, verse 29, just up the column a little bit. 1 John 2:29. If you know that he is righteous, you may be sure that everyone who practices righteousness has been born of him. That's where righteousness comes from. But the evidence, the evidence and confirmation of your new birth is in the practice of righteousness. Chapter 3, verse 9. No one born of God makes a practice of sinning, for God's seed abides in him, and he cannot keep on sinning because he has been born of God. The practice of sin is evidence and confirmation that a person is not born of God, because John insists there is a definite, necessary, and unalterable connection between being and doing. He won't go with the heretics to say there's no connection. You couldn't say it much stronger than verse 9, could you? No one born of God makes a practice of sinning. God's seed abides in him. He cannot keep on sinning because he's been born of God. He even stresses the reason for why that is. He says the seed of God is in you. If you're born again, there's a seed in you. And I'm sure the heretics would have been really happy with that. But John argues that this seed, I don't know whether it's the Word of God, that's called the seed in the New Testament, or the Spirit of God, that's probably the seed in the New Testament, or the nature of God, or some combination of the three. But whatever it is, when God causes us to be born again, he puts something of himself, his Word, his Spirit, his nature, in us such that this seed cannot make peace with practicing sin. Cannot. God's seed cannot settle down and be at peace with patterns of sinful behavior. So the false teachers who think they can separate spiritual reality from physical reality, they don't understand the incarnation and they don't understand regeneration. In incarnation, they try to separate the spiritual, divine, eternal Christ from the flesh of Jesus Christ. And in regeneration, they try to separate the new reality that's created from its manifestation and demonstration in life. That's response number 2. Here's response number 3. Thirdly, John rejects every notion of sinlessness in the Christian life. Any notion that you go a day or an hour without sin, he rejects. Evidently, the way that this false teaching was making headway and was working is that by disconnecting being righteous from doing righteous, they made it easy for people to believe they were righteous when they weren't. And thus they helped their assurance. So one way to advance your assurance is go with the heretics and keep separate the nitty-gritty bodily life as confirmation and evidence of reality, and just say the reality stands whether there's any change here or not. Go that way and you've got easy believism and easy assurance. They would say, well, even if your body doesn't do the things that you're wanting it to do, it's not really you and it doesn't really matter. And so you are above that. You've been born again. The new creation is something other than that. And so the physical nature isn't that crucial in who you are. That was the way they were dealing with it. And so they made sinlessness possible. Because if you separate out this kind of spiritual, unidentifiable, ethereal, new thing that was brought into being by the new birth from all your daily living, you could persuade yourself it's sinless. That's me, and it's sinless. And that's just not me. You might go that way. John's response to that is to take his guns and in 3 huge explosions blow it out of the water. And I'll just point you to the 3 places in the letter. Number 1, chapter 1, verse 8. If we say we have no sin, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. Now that word deceive is only used in relation to false teachers. So what he's saying is, don't let their effort to deceive you become part of your own self-deception, in which you persuade yourselves, I don't sin. That's evidently where they were going. And it sure helps your assurance if you can believe you don't sin. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. I was thinking about how radical that statement is again yesterday. Have, present tense. If we say we have no sin, what? Once a day? Week? Hour? Minute? When is this text not true? It's never not true. You always have sin. Always. This is a very radical response to the heretics. Their solution to the problem of assurance is to disconnect all the problem pieces. And then tell us this ethereal piece that doesn't really have any connection with the body is righteous.